Hey friends, how you doing? I'm Jer Stays, and this is your Daily Detroit, sharing what to know and where to go in Southeast Michigan. Today, for our episode on Wednesday, April 27th, 2022, we're talking about the brand new Detroit Refugee Network and how it's helping Afghans and Ukrainians coming to the region. Let's just get started. Joining me virtually, Kelli Dobner, Chief Advancement Officer over at Samaritas. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks so much, Jer. I'm so excited to be back talking with you.
Well, I'm glad to be talking with you too, because the work you're doing is making a difference. You and the organizations you're working with is making a difference in people's lives, specifically refugees. And there is a lot to talk about. I don't know if people noticed since the last time we talked, there have been some changes in the world that have affected things, to say the least. Even though the news focus has moved away from Afghanistan, those people, there's still a lot that there is needed, and there's still a lot in process to make that stuff happen, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, when you have hundreds of people come into your care in a matter of a couple short months, with the way it all unfolded in the news and very visibly for everyone to see, naturally it hits the headlines in a pretty big way and allows people to really engage in significant ways, which they certainly have done. And we're so grateful for that. At the end of the day, we saw about 1,800 refugees from Afghanistan come into the state of Michigan. About 650 of those came to Southeast Michigan, and 550 of those so far have come into Samaritas's care. And so, we're grateful for the headlines. We're grateful for the attention because, people offered housing opportunities and adoption of families for cultural and social education, employment opportunities. We span multiple verticals and sectors to really surround families. And I'm so excited at what we've been able to do so far in a very strong collaboration across Southeast Michigan and with all of our partners. So, most of those, families today are living in their permanent, affordable housing situation. But we do still have some families in need of housing at this point. So, while it may not be dominating the headlines in some ways, today it's still at the forefront of our work at Samaritas and our other resettlement agency partners. And we're very close to having everybody permanently placed as we look to continue this resettlement work with refugees from other parts of the world.
Yeah, we're going to get into that in a minute, but you were talking about partners. I wanted to mention, apparently there's a new Detroit Refugee Network. Can you tell me about that?
That's right. So you'll remember, when we first started, we needed to answer the call to the situation in Afghanistan, and so the Afghan Refugee Network was born. And the more we started learning about what was coming, as far as a broader vision for serving refugees and welcoming them into our community for a stronger community, economically, socially, culturally, we wanted to create a strong partnership with the city of Detroit, and partners within the city and well beyond. And so, from there, the Detroit Refugee Network was born. We knew that we needed something to respond boldly and quickly to this situation and provide as many opportunities as we could that really created a social services network that hit the social determinants of health in a really meaningful way, setting up people not only for immediate residency, but the ability to stay and thrive. And so, partnering with with the city of Detroit to create the Detroit Refugee Network with all of its different partners that continue to grow to this day, it's not, by no means done, is really important. And so I'm excited to be able to co-chair this network with the First Lady of Detroit, Dr. Sonia Hassan, who has been an amazing partner, and the many different partners that come in from an employment perspective, transportation, housing, even an extension of our team in serving refugee families. Rocket Community Fund has come on in a pretty significant way, and having full-time employees join our team at Samaritas to help resettle refugees on a full-time basis for at least the rest of this year. So our partners have come in many shapes and forms and different ways to help not only create and launch the Detroit Refugee Network, but make sure it lasts in perpetuity. And I'll tell you, even our statewide partners, the Office of Global Michigan, who continue to be a steadfast partner for us, um, always in resettlement, but certainly in networks like the ones that we've been working to create.
So, since we last talked, there has been a little bit of a world issue in that there is now a hot war in Ukraine, literally millions of people displaced. I understand that Samaritas is doing some work around that too.
Absolutely. We launched the Afghan Refugee Network. It turned into a broader vision with the Detroit Refugee Network. And a large part of that reason was because of things that were happening in Ukraine. And while we may not know the exact timing or numbers of refugees we're expecting to come into our care from Ukraine, we are in regular communication with our federal partners and our state partners around what that's going to look like. And we have learned from what happened with Afghanistan, we don't ever want to be in a situation again, where we're building our infrastructure while families are coming into our care. And, coming out of years where that infrastructure didn't require a robust kind of flavor to it, if you will, because we weren't resettling refugees for a couple of years there before this current administration came into place. We knew that we had the opportunity here with the situation developing in Ukraine to be prepared for that in a pretty robust way. Here in Michigan, we have a strong Ukrainian contingent of people that have resettled here in Michigan who are devastated by what's happening in their homeland and want to come alongside resettlement agencies like Samaritas to make sure families are welcomed and have the resources they need once they arrive. And so preparing now for people to adopt families, provide that housing, provide transportation, beef up our staffing efforts to make sure that we're not only continuing to care for families from Afghanistan, but the incoming families we can anticipate from Ukraine and certainly other parts of the world as well, because that is a continuing effort as well, and we are excited that we are prepared to be able to care for families in a robust way.
Now, we touched on this a little bit the last time we talked, but obviously there's always new people here. And I want to get into this for a little bit and mention it. Of course, there is the moral imperative of taking care of people, and that's very, very important. And to me, at the top. But there are additional benefits for a state and a region, especially a region like ours, to support and help kind of plant refugees. Can you talk about some of those benefits in more of an in-depth way, especially for someone who, they think, well, these people, people are coming from another country. Why do we want to support them? What's in it for us?
That's a great question. I think an education around this is really important to this story. I've mentioned before, Michigan is a haven for refugees and immigrants. It always has been. Samaritas alone has been welcoming refugees into Michigan for over 70 years. So it's a fabric of who we are as a community here in this state. And I'm excited that that continues. But the education piece, so people understand not only are we a country and a state of refugees ourselves, so it's inherent to our nation's history and how most of us did come to be here. But when you look at the numbers, the story doesn't; those numbers don't lie. We understand the cultural and social impact that refugees can have in our community. In the experiences that we have, the foods that we eat, the events that we can experience as a result of those influences of people resettling here is insurmountable. It's a huge part of who we are as a community. But even taking that a step further, the economic impact that refugees bring into our community is huge. Nationally, it's over $2 billion that are added to our economy every year just from refugee populations alone. In the taxes that are paid, in the businesses that are opened and contributing to our economic stability from refugee communities is huge. And so I think when people have the opportunity to hear that impact, rather than viewing any of these resources and network creations as handouts, so not the case. They receive very little funding to be able to start a new life here after the trauma that they have experienced as refugees. And the contributions that are made across all of those sectors that I talked about is it's invaluable. And luckily, we can put some numbers to it because it creates a nice education opportunity for people. Once you learn that, and take a step back to understand that refugee experience and how they contribute once they are resettled, it becomes a no brainer. This is an act of humanity. And I'm so proud of the work that Samaritas does and our Michigan community for having a really significant role in that story.
Some of the cities in Metro Detroit that are growing, because not every one of them is, but some of them that are growing, they're made up of immigrant communities. You look at Dearborn, you look at Hamtramck, you look at a number of places where it's people that are moving in. Downriver, for instance, is growing in with the Hispanic community. So you look at where is growing in Metro Detroit, and a lot of ways it's tied to immigration, and refugees are an important part of that story.
And I think people are understanding that more and more. Growing their city, they want that population, and so as not only the population, but the influences and the impact that we just talked about here. There, cities, counties, employers are all looking at these recent events as significant opportunities to build culture and economy, through resettlement, through refugee resettlement. That is without question. And those cities are thriving and growing in some really powerful ways as a result. That's spot on, Jer. You're right.
All right, Kelli, if people want to know more, if they want to support your work, what can they do?
Well, I first encourage people to visit samaritas.org. You can learn all kinds of information about ways to volunteer, offer housing, offer employment opportunities, donate funds to contribute and support this important effort. It's all laid out pretty closely there at samaritas.org.
All right. Well, Kelli Dobner from Samaritas, I really appreciate your time today and keeping us updated on what's happening, and look forward to talking with you again soon.
Oh, I very much look forward to that opportunity. Thanks so much, Jer, for your support and encouragement, and to all of your amazing listeners who, the last time we spoke, reached out. So many reached out in support, and I'm excited to have this continued opportunity to again continue this conversation.
And we are done for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you've got a second, leave a review, Apple Podcasts or Spotify, 5 stars, it helps. Or tell a friend about the show, because word of mouth is the best way to push Detroit's conversation forward. With that, I'm Jer Stays. Remember that you are somebody, and I'll see you around Detroit.